What if I told you that the most frightening thing I ever saw did not arrive with sirens? It did not come with shouting or flashing lights. It came through a screen door. It came in the hush between the dinner dishes and the radio. It came in small ways, the kind you barely notice until they become the new normal. I remember thinking once that the world was simple. You left your door unlocked sometimes. You waved to the man at the corner store. Children ran barefoot until dusk. And here's the part that will surprise you. No one felt unsafe. Not really. We trusted the weathered faces on the block because trust was how we lived. But here's the thing. Something can change without making a scene. It can slip into the cracks of ordinary days. And when it does, by the time you understand what has shifted, it feels as if the whole street has been rearranged. Slowly, quietly, almost politely. I lived through that slow rearrangement. I watched normal life bend in ways I could not name. In this hour, I want to tell you what I remember. Not facts, not judgments. Just what it felt like to stand at my kitchen window and watch my town grow a different kind of shadow. I want you to listen with the kind of patience that comes when the lights are low and the house listens back. Because this story is a memory, and memories settle like dust. They make the air a little heavier, but they also tell you what we were too busy to see. I grew up in a town where mornings smelled like coffee and oil from the bus depot. We had a soda fountain and a bakery that opened early enough that the first loaf warmed your hand. The streets were narrow. The trees bowed toward the houses, like old men nodding in sleep. Most evenings, people left doors unlatched. The screen doors made that soft two-syllable kerchunk sound when they closed. That sound meant you were home, or that someone else was welcome to come in. Neighbors were not celebrities. They were faces you knew by habit. The butcher's laugh, the woman who clipped coupons in the post office, the man who puffed on a pipe while reading the paper on his porch. We spoke in small things, about the weather, the football game, the price of gas. We avoided talk that might widen a conversation into quarrel. We greeted with a nod that said, "I see you. I recognize you." We gave each other the small proofs that you belong here. Children played on stoops. Boys and girls mixed in games until the streetlights called them home. A kid who was late came in with a scuffed knee and an apology. Parents did not hover. We trusted that the kids knew the rules. Mostly they did. Mostly they returned. There were rhythms to the week. Church bells on Sunday. Market trucks on Wednesday. High school dances on Friday night that smelled of starch and hairspray and lipstick. You could set your watch by the way lights slid across the pavement at 5:30. Life was ordinary, in the way that makes ordinary things feel sacred. And yet, even in those days, the world was not perfect. People held their secrets. There were whispers behind curtains. There were men who drank too much, and women who learned to smile past it. But those flaws lived under the same roof as the laughter. They were part of the pattern, contained. They did not change the pattern. So when the small changes began, they slipped by like a thin fog. At first, nothing felt wrong. A block that used to have 3 kids playing now had 2. One of the houses that used to leave a lamp burning at night went dark more often. The paper boy's route shortened by a house or 2. No one raised an alarm. We made reasons. People moved. People worked late. The war in far places took names from our list. Life gave us reasons to look away. And then there were the days when a neighbor stopped stopping. He would pass by the corner store and not come in to talk. He would stand by his car and only nod. That was the first thing I noticed. The small withdrawals. Persons who once lingered at the mailbox now ripped letters open in the car. Mothers began to call their children sooner. Windows closed earlier. The screen doors closed with a firmer catch. I tell you this slowly because that is how it happened. It was not one big event. It was 100 tiny shifts. You could have forgiven each one. You could have explained it away. But together, they made a shape. They made an absence. There was a man on my street whose name was Harold. He fixed radios and lawnmowers. He had hands like raw walnuts and a laugh that came from his chest. Harold wore brown shoes that he polished every Sunday. He would stand by his garage and wave as folks passed. One summer, Harold stopped waving. He would watch people as if they were the ones who had changed. Our conversations shrank until they disappeared. Then Harold left his door unlocked one night and did not come back inside. The next morning, someone saw his lawnmower idling and his garage light on. The kettle on his stove had not gone cold. There was no sign of struggle. Nobody could say what had happened. We told ourselves it was something to do with his heart. We told ourselves it was nothing we could have done. But you remember the feeling more than the facts. You remember seeing someone's porch light burn late, while across the street the curtains remained shuttered. You remember how people began to walk with their collars turned up and their heads down. You remember how the radio's music started to sound thin. It was not only the silence that worried me. It was the way ordinary faces learned to carry secret manners. The postman would tip his hat, but fold a letter as if wrapping it in something protective. The barber would deliver the same story about the same baseball game, yet his hands would cut paper thin instead of the thick talk he used to give. You could feel how the town rehearsed its own forgetfulness. Once, a woman I knew named Ruth invited me for coffee. She had a laugh that made you think the house itself was smiling. That afternoon, she told me about a window that would no longer open all the way. She said she had felt a presence, not a ghost, she clarified, but a heaviness. She laughed it off when she said it, but her hand shook on the cup. Later that week, she bolted the back door at night. She would not go into the garden alone. People said she had trouble sleeping. I thought of danger as loud. I did not think of danger as a quilt that grew too tight around you until you could not breathe. Small things learned new meanings. A man who always borrowed a cup of sugar now checked house locks before he knocked. A woman who used to leave her coat on the porch chair now hung it inside the closet. Children began to come home at the first ring of the bell, not because their parents forbade them, but because the hush outside had started to sound like a verb, an action that could close around you. Rumor is a curious thing. It moves like a draft, unseen, and yet it rearranges papers on a table. People would speak in low voices about items gone missing, about letters that never arrived, about a stranger seen leaning against a lamppost at dawn. We had a name for that sort of talk, busy work. We called it small-town chatter. It kept us busy enough to avoid the kind of listening that asks harder questions. One autumn, an adolescent girl named Mary did not return from an errand. She had gone down to the corner store for a pack of gum. Her bike was found leaning against a tree. The gum wrapper was still in the basket. Her family searched with flashlights that made halos in the fields. We all helped. The radio ran her picture. People donated time. The sheriff, a man with a knotted jaw, said some things that sounded official and left out the parts that made you restless. In time, the search wound down. Life resumed, but the edges around Mary's face in the paper stayed with me. I would see her in the reflection of a shop window and look away. People spoke of mourning as if it were a weather, something you lived through until the ground hardened again. It is important to say, I do not know what walked through our streets. I do not have a neat answer. I only have the way things changed and the way we learned to be quieter. Sometimes the hardest parts to tell are those shaped by human hands, by choices that look ordinary until you hold them up to the light. There was a man who worked nights at the mill. He had a laugh that could lift a thin room. He also had a set of habits that kept him out late and alone. One summer evening, a neighbor found a misplaced letter in his mailbox. The envelope was small, unmarked, and inside were coupons clipped from magazines. He mentioned it the next day like a curiosity. By the end of the week, other small items were misplaced: an extra shirt, a radio battery. People began to say, "Be careful what you leave out." They began to talk about locked sheds and the sound of footsteps at 2 a.m. We started to distrust the dark in ways we had not before. I think the most unsettling thing was watching the language around us change. Words like caution, careful, and perhaps started to get weight. We stopped saying hello in the same warm way. We said hello the way you might to a passing face on an unfamiliar train. Invitations became plans with conditions. Come by, but don't stay late. Bring yourself, but not too many of you. It was as if we were learning a new grammar of survival. There were moments of refusal. Some folks resisted the slipping hush. The diner owner, Sal, kept his greasy spoon open until midnight. He insisted that people needed a place to sit and talk. It did not matter that some nights there were only 3 of us. Sal would refry the potatoes and pour coffee that tasted like stubbornness. He taught me that the act of keeping a place ordinary is itself a kind of defiance. He would listen to the complaints and not let them grow teeth. He was my reminder that light could be held. But even Sal's light had to look at the dark and understand it. Once, he told me about a man who came in and sat at the far end of the counter. The man did not order. The man only watched the door, as if to measure who came and who left. After a while, the man slipped out like steam. Later that week, a neighbor mentioned a missing radio. We brightened the talk into jokes, and then clutched our cups a little tighter. The joke would not hold. You learn to notice the way ordinary things can carry threat. A smile that is too quick. A neighbor who knows too much about schedules. A voice that borrows your confidence and uses it against you. It is absurd, and yet it is how the world turned. People who seemed friendly folded themselves inward. Trust became a rationed thing. We handed it only to those who had proven it, and often we asked for proof in the smallest of ways. A returned greeting, a kitchen light on as dusk fell, a word at the fence. Perhaps what I remember most is how denial can be a shelter. We told ourselves that nothing truly bad could happen to our town. We talked about other places where dark things landed with noise. We told ourselves that our streets had too much of the ordinary to be a stage for horror. That belief carried us for a while. But denial does not stop change. It simply narrows the view until you miss a doorway. In one house near the river, there was a family that had lived there for generations. They kept their curtains pale and their porch swing slow. One night, the father told his son to lock the garden gate and to take the dog in. The boy laughed and told him it was silly. The father insisted. The boy did it and later could not say why his father's insistence had felt different. Years passed. The father left things unsaid over dinner. The boy grew with a steady unease that he could not name. I think of that insistence sometimes, and I realize that it was an intelligence the father had that the son did not yet possess. Sometimes, older people can hear the slow change before younger ears can make it into words. There were whispers of lawmen who came and did their slow, quiet work. They moved through the rooms of houses like cautious birds. They asked questions and left, and then returned. The townsfolk watched them from behind blown curtains. We offered our memories like pieces of string, some frayed, some taut. They took what they could and then walked away. In time, investigations folded into other investigations. Files gathered dust. People kept their own counsel. In the years that followed, the town learned new precautions. Gates were bolted. Night walks were less common. Children played with new rules. The loud, careless trust of my childhood matured into a quieter, guarded care. It was practical. It was necessary. It was also a loss. I often think about what the change cost us beyond the immediate fear. It cost us the ease of exchange. It cost us the comfortable habit of leaving a cup of sugar on the counter for the neighbor who might need it. It cost a certain kind of lightness in how we moved through our days. We became more deliberate about the faces we let close. We began to weigh every wave. And yet, even as the town tightened, other things did not change. Mothers still folded sheets. Men still fixed things. The bakery still sent the warm breath of bread into the morning. Life persisted in small acts of continuity. That, too, was a kind of resistance. I tell you all this not to frighten you, but to show how evil, if you want to name it that, often looks ordinary. It does not have to roar. It can be polite. It can borrow your sugar and leave a note that says thanks. It can be the polite smile in the doorway that hides a plan. It can be the neighbor who is suddenly too helpful. This is the part that stays with me. The way ordinary gestures can wear a different face. When people ask me what to do with memories like these, I tell them this. Remember the small things. Remember the way light felt on certain porches at certain hours. Remember the sound of the screen door and the way a kettle sings if left on. Remember the names of people who kept places open, like Sal. Keep those images near you. They are not just nostalgia. They are tools, and I tell them to be gentle with themselves. The kind of noticing I am describing is not a blame game. It is a slow attentiveness that learns to see patterns without making any single person a villain. Sometimes we are all complicit in not seeing. Sometimes we all look the other way for reasons that are human and understandable. The trick is to learn softly how to listen. I will give you one small last image. It was a night when the wind smelled like rain, and the streetlight hummed the way it always did, while casting a long, neat pool on the sidewalk. I stood at my window and watched a neighbor cross the street carrying a small box. He walked steady. He passed a porch where a little girl put her head out and called his name. He nodded and kept going. He delivered the box. He returned home. Nothing dramatic. No one followed. The next morning, someone mentioned a missing thing at the library. People exchanged the smallest of glances. That image of the man with the box and the child looking out has remained. It is ordinary and also the edge of everything we could not speak. If there is a lesson in my memory, it is this. Trust is a fragile thing. It is woven from small, repeated acts. When a town loses that weave, it does not always happen with violence. Sometimes it frays. Sometimes it simply becomes a different cloth. You can mend a cloth, but the mend stays. You remember the repair when you touch it. So I ask you to listen to this story like you would listen to an old friend at the end of the night. Let the details sit. Let the quiet do its work. If you feel something stirred up, that is only natural. It means you have ears tuned to small things. And small things are where lives are shaped. If you want to talk about what I have said, then speak in the comments. Tell a memory you carry. Tell the name of a porch light that stayed on for you. I will read slowly. I will nod in my chair. If you would like more stories like this, subscribe and come back. But do it because you want to sit with these memories, not to rush past them. I close by saying this. Evil does not always arrive as a thunderclap. Sometimes it sits politely at your table, asks for salt, and starts to rearrange the china. That is the terrifying part. The ordinary can be dangerous. The ordinary can hide its hands. And the quietest truth I have learned is that trust, once altered, leaves a silence that is harder to fill than any missing object. Listen. Remember. Be gentle. The night will keep what it will keep, but the memory of light matters more than you think.